Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Will and Rock MMA podcast.
What's going on, everybody? We have some rumor fights going on, some stuff that are official, which we're really looking forward to.
Absolutely.
Let's jump straight into this rumor.
Let's go for it.
Mirko Kokov fighting versus Fedor Emelianenko. I know you have a bit more information on that.
Well, it was just the press conference after the Daly versus MVP fight that happened last Saturday. Scott Coker went on the press conference and said that after Mirko Kokop's win over Roy Nelson, the fight to make happen was the Fedor Emelianenko versus Mirko Kokop. Mirko Kokop, he spoke to him. Scott Coker spoke to Mirko Kokop, and Mirko Kokop said that he's willing to fight. So in other words, is verbally agreed on by one party, not by Fedor Emelianenko just yet.
Okay.
So it's why it's technically a rumor. However, it's something that they're really looking to put together, right?
Yeah. I mean, if these guys are still competitive at that age, which is what makes this fight interesting. You know, we talk about like other legends like Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell. Like, what a disaster that fight took. But the fact that it even took place was a fucking disaster. But these two fighters, you saw Mirko Kokop took out freaking Roy Nelson. Very impressive,
Very impressive. Worked all the way to the third round, which makes it even more impressive to me because technically some of these older fighters lose stamina after the first or second round, but they took it to the third round where he finally was able to take care of Roy Nelson. As far as Fedor Emelianenko goes, we've seen him compete more often than not after a long layoff that he had when he got knocked out by Dan Henderson, right? So we're seeing a more active Fedor Emelianenko, not the best of Fedor Emelianenko we've seen, of course. Again, it's a more weathered down. He's an older fighter, but it makes for a compelling fight. These are two fighters that fought before in Pride, and everybody wants to see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is definitely worth watching. I totally agree with you. And then we have at UFC 236, which I think takes place April 13th, is Kevin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya.
Right.
This fight makes total sense. I mean, we just got Whitaker, who just got injured, and now the belt is that belt is completely up there. Like, no, it's up for grabs. So the interim belt, they will be fighting for the interim belt as Whitaker recovers from his lung injury or kidney injury.
He had a hernia actually that he needed to get taken off right away, and
I'm thinking about Felder.
And then while he was there was some complications as well, but whatever it is, he was injured. This is going to take about a 7-month recovery period. So because of that, they're putting this fight together. A tremendous fight to put. It just completely makes sense. You figure Kevin Gastelum was waiting to fight against Whitaker. Whitaker gets injured. So who he fights? He's not going to wait an extra 7 months for that belt. So why not get a guy like Israel Adesanya, who just finished beating Anderson Silva, and have them match up, which they are, which is a great match.
I must say what the UFC has done with Israel has been so well done.
I agree.
There's fighters that come into the UFC and you're like, why throw him against the wolves so fast? Let him build the name for himself. We've seen it. We've seen it with Francis Gnannou. That happened with Francis Gnannou. They threw him in the wolves. Granted, some people just excel under the wolf throwing. Mm-hmm. That happened with I can't even think about fighters like top of my head.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but they've done that to many.
Jair Rodriguez is another example. There's a lot of fighters that they did where they just throw them.
Hardy was another one. Hardy was another fucking disaster as well. So I think what they've done with Israel, they've really built the name for him. He's done absolutely phenomenal and completely shined through every single obstacle they've thrown at him.
I agree.
So this is a fight that just makes absolute sense for the UFC and for the fans, because you're gonna get butts in those seats, man.
Yo, without a doubt.
And sad to say, but GSP has officially retired.
You know, one of the only fighters that is leaving at the top. He didn't take any loss. The only loss that he took was against Matt Serra, right? But then he revenged that fight a few months later and just completely dominated Matt Serra, with all due respect, but he did. And then all he did after that was just legendary.
Complete
with
dominance.
The Hendricks, with the Nick Diaz of the game.
BJ Penn,
absolutely.
He's definitely beat legends, and obviously he is a legend. He is a future Hall of Famer.
And it's important to say because and again, no disrespect, but like a guy like Anderson Anderson Silva, he would fight Rich Franklin 5 times just because he didn't have an opponent. However, you had a guy like GSP who fought BJ Penn at his best, fought Matt Serra at his best, fought Matt Hughes at his best, Frank Trigg, all these big fighters that were technically all championship level. He dominated them. He legit dominated them, and left with the belt, which is amazing. It's one of the best stories in MMA history.
I couldn't agree with you more. The only sad part that comes with all that is that we did not see him go against Khabib. I mean, he just made his return and beat Michael Bisping and just said, okay, I came here just to fight. I wanted to see the belt. You could have it right back.
Yeah.
He's that impressive, and somebody who's never stayed away from not staying in shape. Somebody who was gone for the octagon for so many years and still stayed busy doing his own exercise, and that's what makes him such an impressive fighter.
And it's what he said in the press conference. He said, although I'm retiring from actual combat in mixed martial arts, doesn't mean that I'm not going to still be a practitioner. It's going to be with me for the rest of my life, and he's going to continue doing it going forward. So
great partner to have, if you ask me.
And at Tyrone Woodley, we just got in and said, if I could train with you, so you're going to get like real high level people. Him training high level people.
That's one guy that won't be broke anytime soon, right? And then we have at UFC, there's 2 fights going on at UFC 237, May 11th, which is Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira versus Ryan Spann. And then you also have Anderson Silva headlining the card versus Jared, I can't even pronounce the name, Canier or something like that?
Something along the lines of that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting they're giving 2 legends of the sport, right? Rodrigo Nogueira.
Brazilian legends.
Well, no, legends in general, but they happen to be Brazilian, right?
Sure, yeah.
Nogueira with Silva. They put them in the same card. Silva coming off a small layoff after the fight with Israel Adesanya, which he lost, but ended up standing up.
Very impressive.
Very impressive. I agree with you. They're putting him with what we consider a new buck, not necessarily in the MMA field, but in the UFC. I haven't heard from this gentleman who Anderson Silva is fighting, but it's a perfect matchup to put him right back into the octagon, especially after a three-round battle with Israel Adesanya, right? And then let's talk about Nogueira. Nogueira is a very similar fighter who had a very impressive fight. He I forgot who he knocked out.
His last fight.
Fuck.
Chris, do you mind looking that up for us?
Yeah. Knocks out the fighter, and then he goes into
Rodrigo Nogueira's last fight.
Now being booked to this fight in Brazil, which is perfect timing for Nogueira to come back. It's in his hometown.
It is. This is a weathered down Rodrigo Nogueira for sure. But the great thing that comes along with all that is that this is the time where Anderson Silva should drop his gloves after this fight. If he gets the victory, he's in Brazil. He's in Curitiba, if I'm saying that correctly, where it's his hometown, where he really made a name for himself. This is the time to hang out the gloves, to put on the gloves. Same thing for Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Put down the gloves. Hopefully they both pull off an impressive victory to really seal the deal and be like GSP and land up top. We'll eventually get you guys who Rodrigo knocked out last time he fought. Let's jump straight into UFC on ESPN 1, which was actually a free event, and I must say very well put together by ESPN.
Great card. Great card.
Not only did they do a phenomenal job with commentating and everything that comes along with it, working with that organization, but the fights were great, man.
Yeah,
decision fights were phenomenal. The knockouts were phenomenal. The submissions were phenomenal.
Even
so let's jump. Yeah, that's what I mentioned the first time. And Andre Fili versus Myers Jury.
Now that was a fucking fight. I love a fight like this. A guy like Fili who comes into the octagon knowing that Miles is a straight up killer on his feet, decides to jab away. And although he got hurt in the process, he never let go of that jab. He jabbed all of round 1, round 2, and round 3. No major punches from Fili. that came throughout the whole fight. I mean, he rocked him a little bit with the right hand at one point, but nothing major, nothing that you could really stands out. However, he maintained that same game plan from round 1 to round 3. Tremendous performance by Philly. I gotta give him a lot of credit. Although it went to decision, it was one of the most entertaining fights of the night.
I gotta agree. To start off the night like that in Arizona.
Chris, you have
He won his last fight.
Yeah, I know.
Sam Avery.
Oh, Sam Avery.
Right.
Was it a knockout?
It was a KO. Yeah.
Oh wow, Sam Avery.
He had performance of the night.
Oh wow. Okay, so just to back up and rewind a little bit, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira did beat Sam Alvey. If I'm not mistaken, Sam Alvey via TKO, which is why it's not a surprise that the UFC brought him back into fighting again in Brazil. Yes, back to Andre Fili and Miles Jury. Couldn't agree with you more, man. I was actually really impressed with the composure that Fili, like you mentioned. His composure and his game plan didn't change, which speaks volumes of his corner if you stop and think about it. Miles Jury was one punch away, I felt, from winning this fucking fight, which was what made it so interesting.
Yeah.
But great job to Fili. Couldn't agree with you more. Next fight, we had Brian Barbina versus Vicente Luque.
Yeah.
What a fucking battle, bro!
That I kind of felt bad after that fight. I'm like, as much as I love to see those fights,
fucking these guys lost, bro.
Right.
So many years, man.
As much as I love to see, like, rock and sock 'em in the middle of the octagon, knowing what it takes to become a fighter, knowing like all the stuff that they had to go through and to get into that position where they're just getting banged left and right on the head. It was one of the wildest fights I've seen. Barrera, I don't know where this guy comes from, but his head, the Brazilian fighter, which, can you give me his first name? Because I always forget the Brazilian guy's first name.
Oh, Vicente?
Vicente, threw everything but the kitchen sink at this guy, man. The hardest punches you've ever seen land directly to the jaw. The guy just snuffed it off and kept it moving forward. And he just couldn't take it. At the end of the day, third round came. He just could not take any more of that punishment. Unfortunately, he got dropped and kneed right on the face on his way down, and he couldn't take it no more.
And to credit to Brian, not only did he take a big amount of punishment, he also delivered a bunch of punishment, because he literally was throwing, and everything he was throwing was just bombs. I must give him credit. His hands are a lot faster than I anticipated, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for Vicente. Vicente found a way to put it all together for this fight. But Vicente cannot have that mindset walking into the next fight.
But what was interesting, I agree with you 100%. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what's very interesting in this fight is that we know how crazy Barrera is on the ground. Like, that he has a great submission game. Why didn't he take him down? Is back to what we always talk about, how these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters come in, they figure out a way to stand up a little bit, their performance gets a little better as far as standing up goes, and they don't want to hit the ground anymore.
Yeah.
It's the BJ Penns of the world too. It's like, what got you to the dance? Like, you should continue that same dance,
It's that hard-headed mentality as a fighter, I guess, that if you're going to give the fans what they want, and that mindset kills years out of your life, and that mindset usually makes you lose fights. You're more devoted to what the fans are looking for, which I respect as a consumer of the UFC and somebody who's a constant viewer of it. But at the same time, you have to start thinking about your future. You submit this guy, you find a way to submit this guy, it goes down as a fucking record, as a victory, and it's a submission, it's a finish.
Right.
Granted, he didn't do that. I totally agree with you. When you're taking that much punishment on your feet, take it to the ground. Next fight, we have Alex Caceres versus Kron Gracie. Now, I did mention to you that I said Kron Gracie's stand-up game is a little better than most of the Gracies that we've known, and you said, "Oh no." I said, okay, Roger Gracie was the only one that we really thought right on top of our head that really had a great stand-up game.
Better.
Stand-up game, yeah.
None of the Gracies had a really good stand-up game.
Kron's stand-up game gave him leverage for what he was able to accomplish. And that's what makes Kron so dangerous. How fast was it? And we're talking about someone like Caceres, who, first of all, is very agile, great submissions specialist himself. and hard to put into these situations. How fast did Kron Gracie was able to take him down and submit him? My God, is this guy dangerous?
This is the next level of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We saw it with Damian Maia. Damian Maia was doing this to every competitor. Mind you, Damian Maia would grind you on the floor, beat you up for a couple of minutes before finally doing the rear naked choke, arm choke, whatever the hell that he submitted you with. We're looking at a guy that we see steps with this guy, right? Kron Gracie goes in there, back to what you're saying, use his stand-up just enough to try to get closer to you, to grab you exactly what he did. And once he had you, he was not planning on letting go.
It was a wrap.
They went from the standing up, Kron Gracie grabs him, drags him to the floor. It might have taken about 2 to 3 minutes before he sunks in that rear naked choke and squeezes like his life depended on him. And Alex Caceres unfortunately couldn't take it anymore and decided to tap out, all in the first round. Tremendous performance by Kron Gracie. I'm like really trying to figure out who could they possibly put this guy in the octagon with. But something to look forward to.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. And once again, let's be careful how the UFC handles someone like that.
Yeah.
You put him against a stand-up artist and he found a way for victory. Alex Caceres is a bit of a name for the UFC right now. Think twice before you start throwing him in the wolves. Like, let him work his way into that. He's still very young with endless amount of potential, and it's scary.
He's not that young, meaning young in MMA world.
Yeah, in the MMA world, but dude, he's still in his 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He's
God damn it, Chris!
Can you check how old Kron Gracie is, please? I want to prove a point here. Kron Gracie,
yeah.
Kron. Next fight, we have Cynthia Cavallo versus Courtney Casey. Another fucking staying the bank.
Another, man.
That was a chess match from the...
Yeah.
He's 30.
He's 30.
Oh, he's 30. Still in his prime.
Okay. That's one of his
such a technical fight, such a great chess match.
Yeah.
The way these girls stand up, even though I felt like Casey could have moved a little bit more.
She seems very hesitant throughout the whole fight.
And very flat-footed.
Yeah.
She was getting nailed cleanly because of her flat foot, but she was delivering, bro.
She was.
Cynthia did obviously a better job, outwork Courtney Casey. It wasn't one of these fights where you're like, oh my God, it was an incredible fight, but it was just the level of MMA, the level of women's MMA. We're seeing it. We're finally seeing it.
Yeah, the evolution of women's MMA has been very interesting. From back in the days with Gina Carano and the Chris Cyborgs of the world, but we're starting to see the development of each one of them. And it got to the point where Ronda Rousey took over, and you're like, holy fuck, this girl could actually beat guys, right? To the point now where pretty much any female that gets into the octagon with the Ronda Rousey from back in the days could probably beat her. It's we're starting to see the evolution in such a rapid speed. We're looking at the top-notch fighters like Amanda Nunes, right? Like Rose Namajunas. All these fighters who are like, what? This is a different level of MMA. But back to what you're saying, it's so dope to see this shit like grow from where it started, from the women's MMA now to where it is now. It's amazing. It truly is.
I couldn't agree with you more. But anyways, shout out to Cynthia Cavallo. She did a phenomenal job.
I'm interested to see who they're planning on putting her next into that.
There's a lot of names for her right now.
Yeah.
She definitely hits the mix at this point. She did win by decision. Amazing fight. Kudos to both girls. Next fight was my shit. Paul Felder versus James Vick.
Yeah.
Bro, I know Felder's a fucking beast. That goes without saying. I know what I was gonna get, what they were gonna get off James Vick. Paul Felder, everything he throws, it's with such horrendous intentions, bro.
And he maintains it.
How does he maintain that level? And how does he go into the third round? He had a punctured lung from a backspinning kick that James Vick threw. This motherfucker was still doing what he was doing. I'm like really impressed with him. His adversity is pretty insane. If you look at when he ended up fighting Mike Perry and he did a spinning back fist and he broke his forearm. and he kept going. This dude is the real deal, and he is scary as fuck, man.
He truly is. You know, because he has that intensity at all times. There's no slowing down for Paul Felder. He's throwing everything with bad intentions, like you said. It's why he gets injured. This is not he got injured with Mike Perry, and then he got injured as well in the fight before. Don't remember exactly who he fought, but he got injured as well. And it goes back to what we were talking about. It's just intense. He's so intense. Everything is like knockout. He wants to knock your lights out. And we're starting to see, but if it works, it works. And what happened in this fight, it just worked with James Vick. James Vick being the bigger guy. If you saw them side by side, James Vick had like
so much more taller.
15 pounds on him. Yeah. But Felder did not stop. He kicked him in the leg and continued. Just like chopping up a tree. And before you know it, Vick couldn't plant that left leg, so he couldn't throw his right hand correctly.
You know what's the impressive thing out of all this? Is the fact that James Vick is a Muay Thai specialist.
Yeah.
He is a kickboxing specialist. He uses his feet before he uses his hands.
Yeah.
And the fact that Paul Felder was able to walk in there and chop him down, like you said, so impressive on Paul Felder's part. Paul Felder wins by decision, but what a fucking fight, man.
What a fucking fight. He lost against Barboza. He's looking for that fight. He said, I want Barboza next time. That's what he fought.
The
Barboza.
rematch.
He wants a rematch with Barboza because Barboza's fighting Gaethje. But if not, he doesn't mind banging it out with Gaethje, and it's not a bad fight as well, man.
I think I like that fight.
Yeah, either one is a good
Felder's
fight.
more of a technical fighter. Well, Gaethje's become this now. He's a true wrestler, but he's really become this like wild style type of fighter.
Yeah.
Paul Felder could really eat him up if he goes the technical route.
We'll see.
Good point.
We'll see.
Last but not least, man. Well, you know what? Cain Velasquez versus Francis Gnannou. Now, it's a disappointment that. Not necessarily this is a disappointment that Francis Gnannou won, because honestly we forget who Francis Gnannou is if you really were going
He's
against him.
the baddest man in the octagon. Every time.
But it's just the way it occurred. Like the way that Cain Velasquez he did get clipped, but he blew out his knee, which was the real reason why the fight was over. People say, oh, the punch was the fight is over. Yes, he did get it hit, but we're talking about Cain Velasquez. If Cain Velasquez would have hit the mat and bounced right back up. He was screaming when he was in the ground because he blew out his knee. And then he literally just realized that there was no defense to it. He covered up.
So I've listened to many commentators from both sides. People that say, oh, the knee, I have to take the route of the punch. And the reason why is because when, a good example, a good example was when Gabriel Gonzaga knocked out Mikro Krokop with that. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. I know it's a little radical, however.
What the fuck?
However, when he clipped him with that leg kick where it kind of stumbled him, his right leg completely gave out on him and almost broke in the process. Now, with that being said, that all has to do with getting mild concussed while you're hitting the ground. I believe that the same thing happened to Cain Velasquez. He got hit. It was a mild concussion. His left leg gave out, and that's why he sprained his he blew out his knee.
The reason why I feel like that's not necessarily true is because he was going in with that kick. He was going in like to lure in, and then he got clipped, and his knee blew out.
His balance went out. That's why his knee gave out.
You know what? It's one of those things where I have to see it again.
Yeah.
Because if you ask me, he was conscious when he hit the floor, and you could see his face was in agonizing pain, not from the punch, but really from the knee. That's what I got from that.
But I don't disagree with you. His knee did blow out because that's proven. It's been blown out. Why did it get blown out? It was because he got mild concussed and his leg gave out, and this is the reason why his leg didn't have. So when he woke up again, his leg was blown out. You know what I'm saying? It's truly what I believe. But back to that, the disappointing thing about the whole fight was that it ended so quick. For me personally, me. And also, Cain coming from devastating injuries. It's been out for 2 full years with full injuries back to back to now come back into the octagon. If he would have gotten knocked out, he would have gotten knocked out. But he got knocked out and blew out a knee. Why add more injury to what already was there? And it's unfortunate with one of the greatest heavyweight champions we've ever graced the octagon
Hands down.
to begin with.
I think Stipe doesn't get much love in that category. Every time I hear that, it bothers me a little bit because Stipe has had less injuries than any UFC heavyweight fighter probably of all time, and he's consistently fought and defended his title more than anybody else. So do I think Cain Velasquez is a bad motherfucker? And is he one of the best? He's definitely the one.
I just said one of the greatest to ever. I didn't say he's the best.
No, I know, because a lot of people, I'm talking about just in general, like that statement comes always up. Oh, he's the greatest. You have to be consistent in the octagon. If you're still considered to be in your prime, to be consistent in the octagon and stay away from injuries, which in this sport it's hard to say, but that's the reality of it. And I think that's why Stipe should be put up there. That's why I fucking feel like Stipe should fucking fight Cormier. But anyways, I am not the commissioner, nor do I set up fights for the UFC. Anything you want to say before we get going?
No. Let's shout out Jim Miller. Jim Miller started following us on Instagram.
Shout out to Jim Miller.
We were like going like groupies, like going crazy. Like, oh shit, Jim Miller. You know what I mean? So shout out to Jim Miller. We appreciate the love and support. But besides that,
we're all set.
We're good, my brother.
Peace, everyone. Have a good one.